Shut up! Some of us are still trying to sleep!
Cobra for this one featured some breakneck editing that also gave me some sensory overload. Seriously, y'all do realize that less is more sometimes, just saying. But yeah, it featured the Ojamajo playing in a band led by the Spotlight character of the week. Thus, appropriately enough, the episode proper opened with the biggest earworm of the season with the Baking Alphabet song. Also, am I the only one who kind of forgot that these girls had fairy partners? I mean, I think I can count on one hand the number of times Moko's fairy has appeared in this entire season. Anyway, the president of their music club stopped by to tell them that they were going to hold some practice sessions for an upcoming talent show during the summer break, which yeah, I'm on Doremi's side on this. You couldn't drag me to school during my vacation days. However, I guess that didn't apply to the Ompu Sims, who of course wanted to join the music club just because she was there. These characters aren't nearly as funny as they used to be because they've become so commonplace. Fortunately, Ompu managed to get around them by turning into a hamster because, yeah, that's the most natural response, really. With that, the club was able to hold their meeting by first discussing what sort of instruments they had on hand. Okay, now I'll tell him. So Disney wants to use y'all's music for their live-action adaptation of Lilo and Stitch. Oh, they're not gonna pay you or anything, they're just gonna steal it. However, the current club could only play with what they specialized in, and they didn't exactly match up. I mean, kind of obviously, I'm no music expert, but some of these instruments could make for a simple orchestra at least. Moreover, Moko had a good song that they could use as a basis, that obviously we can't play here, but trust me when I say, it sounded good, and nothing too extra, and oh boy, this character just looks extra. But yeah, this kid named Takuro, as in like rock and roll, was the son of the Evergreen band that was mentioned in a previous episode in regards to Nishizawa's favorite J-drama, as they did the opening for it. Thus, they tried to channel some of the Far's talent into the son's guitar, which he did for like all of 3 notes.
That doesn't make a song.
Regardless, and since they didn't have much else to go off of, like Momoko's song, they decided to go with rock and roll and left it up to Takuro to come up with something. With that, everyone regrouped a few days later. Doremi, do you not see the fart cloud? Actually, it was the embodiment of Takuro's depression, as he wasn't able to get any pointers from his dad about playing the electric guitar. Thus, he decided to just quit the music club, not wanting to drag everyone else down with him. On a bit of a side note, I like how the Japanese term for dragging others down is pulling someone's leg, which confused Momoko, as in English, that metaphor would more refer to teasing someone. That said, it probably did feel like a bad joke to her, as she thought he was giving up way too easily. Thus, wholesomely enough, they agreed to try and teach him what they could, and cover for him by just going with Momoko's song, which they really should have from the beginning, and apparently it was originally created by Beth, I think. They didn't really clarify it all that well, but whatever. Anyway, the music club managed to come together pretty well, even though again, I don't think they were ever all that far off base. And they managed to get some good practice in, until Takuro decided to pull a King Cobra JFS. This is just what happens when you let your kids listen to nothing but Ozzy Osbourne. They later decided to try and figure out what Takuro's issues were, especially in regards to his father, so they decided to visit him at his home. And as a result, they ended up running into the father and son as they were arguing about teaching him how to play the guitar. However, he had completely given up on playing the instrument altogether. Yeah, I guess he'd rather just work on his over-convoluted plans to take over the Soul Society. This led to Takuro going to a flashback during the days when he was still in Evergreen and tried to share his musical experiences with his son. So it's like a washed up magazine that mostly talks about politics rather than music? Nah, of course, he tried to compare music to something that doesn't stop, even though Rolling Stones do eventually come to a stop due to Newton's first law, but let's try not to question a guy who was probably on a lot of acid at the time. And no, I'm not even really kidding, considering what his band was likely based on back in the day. Yeah, that's a little less evergreen and more Sgt. Peppery. But yeah, we got even more backstory this time from Mrs. Hagiwara, who went on to explain a pretty unfortunate, but not too uncommon falling out story of a one-hit wonder band. Though, fortunately, they did get a bit of a break when they were hired to do the theme of Nishizawa's J-drama, but it didn't sit well with Mr. Hagiwara, as while the song initially saved his band, it was also a tune written by a third party that the record company had commissioned. And since he had written all of their songs up until then, and would likely have to further compromise their artistic vision, he decided that they should just disband. Now, on the one hand, yeah, this is kind of petty, and in the long run, it probably wasn't the greatest call financially for the whole band, but again, it's a fairly common story about many upstart bands who don't want to compromise on their artistic visions.
And hey, it could be worse. At least he didn't pull Lennon and break up his group because of some crazy chick.
Also, I do kind of like the poetic irony that while Mr. Hagiwara ended up dragging his band down due to his stubbornness, Takuro actually tried to avoid the sins of the father by selflessly leaving the music club early on. However, unlike the father, things weren't as all or nothing for Takuro, and the Ojamajo were more than willing to help out. In fact, they even used the magical stage as their personal Google to track down the other members of Evergreen and got a flyer for their latest gig. Yeah, again, I think they've wasted the spell on things a lot worse than just making some barley tea. Anyway, they found the members in a shady bar at night, which, yeah, thankfully one of the band members pointed out and tried to get them to leave, but also decided to hear them out when they brought Mr. Hagiwara. Yeah, as it turned out, they wanted to reunite with their former lead guitarist, as they actually shared in his belief that they shouldn't compromise their artistic values, so at least he didn't completely drag them down. Thus, they decided to have a very Beatles-esque reunion by just playing right outside his apartment.
Stop! Did someone just do a rim shot when he entered into the scene?
With that, they cleared things up, and Mr. Hagiwara got his passion back for the guitar. From there, they of course held a little concert that was likely stopped by the cops 10 minutes later for disturbing the peace and holding an unauthorized gathering. Also, yeah, they very clearly had someone else sing for Mr. Hagiwara, which is a bit of a shame, as personally, I could have gone for a ballad by Aizen. With that, the episode ended with the music club deciding on their piece for the talent show.
This was just another okay-ish episode for this season.
Like, I do tend to kind of like stories about artists refusing to compromise their visions, and this was a simple yet effective enough tale.
My biggest complaint is one I've had for a lot of episodes in this season, in that it just didn't feel all that much like an actual magical girl anime.
When you get down to it, stories that mirror or take influence from the careers of the Beatles are kind of a dime a dozen. This episode was no different, though obviously a little more G-rated in a lot of areas. This, of course, is not a bad thing, as it also did highlight the idea that people should pursue careers that they prefer, which, if they involve creative elements like music making, then they should stick with what they like. Now, personally, I think Evergreen could have found some better compromises before just becoming a one-hit wonder, but it's okay for a 20-minute show about bands. Oh wait, this is supposed to be a magical girl anime, right? Yeah, unfortunately, other than Ompu avoiding the Sims and having the magical stage just give them a flyer, there wasn't much magical stuff in this episode. There was some decent character building, like Doremi relating with Mr. Hagiwara giving up on the guitar like she did with the piano, but other than that, this felt more like an episode of Beck than Doremi, really. Granted, Beck also had much better animation, and this one was Mitsuru Aoyama's usual lazy animation that relies on a lot of repeating cuts and the drag and drops. It's not his worst episode, but just another reason why I don't get why Toei keeps this guy around. Regardless, this was an okay-ish episode with decent message and character work, but also does feel kind of out of place amongst all the magical girl stuff. Maybe it would have helped if they had danced on a really bright neon stage, or hell, maybe even a yellow submarine.
Thanks for watching, and if you want some good music recommendations, well, this season is gonna have a lot of it actually. Yeah, along with us continuing Idol Precure, Princessian Orchestra will premiere this weekend, which is from the creators of Symphogear, so yeah, you can at least guess the general premise of that show. So look forward to it. Until then though, for now my friends, and
Where could we go? Argentina?
if you guys need any help, I can make some travel arrangements.